In a room full of cameras, Jasmine Crockett tried to humiliate Karoline Leavitt. Leavitt's response? Unforgettable. The morning light filtered through the tall windows of the Russell Senate Office Building's hearing room, casting long rectangles of warmth across the polished oak table. The chamber, with its cream-colored walls and mahogany trim, had witnessed countless historical moments throughout the decades. Today would add another chapter to its storied history. Representative Jasmine Crockett adjusted her emerald green blazer, the fabric catching the light as she shifted in her leather chair. Her fingers traced the edge of the manila folder before her. Nails painted a deep burgundy. The microphone loomed before her, its small red light not yet illuminated. She took a measured sip from her water glass, the ice cubes clinking softly as she set it back down on the coaster. Across the dais sat Karoline Leavitt, poised in a navy blue dress with a simple pearl necklace that caught occasional glints from the overhead lighting. The leather portfolio under her hands contained meticulously organized tabs, blue, yellow, and red flags marking specific documents she had prepared for this very moment. Between them, the committee chairman cleared his throat, the sound amplified through the room's speaker system. The chamber, already hushed in anticipation, fell into complete silence. The audience members in the gallery behind shifted slightly, the wooden benches creaking under their weight. Journalists tapped quietly on their laptops, the soft clicking providing a subtle background rhythm to the proceedings. The committee will now hear opening statements, the chairman announced, his voice resonating through the chamber. Representative Crockett, you have 5 minutes. The red light on Crockett's microphone blinked on. She leaned forward, her posture confident as she began to speak. Her voice carried the practiced cadence of an experienced litigator, rising and falling with deliberate emphasis. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The matter before us today is not merely about policy disagreements, but about accountability and transparency. The gallery listened intently as Crockett built her argument, point by methodical point. Her hands moved expressively, occasionally gesturing toward the large screen where key statistics were displayed in bold blue and red graphics. The temperature in the room seemed to rise with the intensity of her delivery. And furthermore, she continued, her voice gaining momentum, these discrepancies cannot be dismissed as simple oversight. The documentation clearly shows a pattern that demands explanation. As she spoke, Leavitt's expression remained neutral, but her eyes narrowed slightly. Her right hand moved steadily across her notepad, capturing key points without looking down. The silver pen in her grip caught the light as she wrote, the only visible sign of her internal calculations. When Crockett's time expired, the chairman nodded toward Leavitt. Ms. Leavitt, you have 5 minutes for your response. The transition was seamless as Leavitt's microphone illuminated. She straightened her shoulders and looked directly at the committee members, her gaze steady and unwavering. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the passion behind Representative Crockett's statements, but I must respectfully disagree with both her characterization and her conclusions. Leavitt's voice carried a measured confidence as she methodically addressed each point. She referenced specific documents, asking the committee aide, a young man in a charcoal suit, to display particular exhibits on the screen. Each time she cited a specific paragraph or figure, she paused briefly, allowing the information to register with her audience. If you'll direct your attention to Exhibit B, page 43, she continued, her tone matter-of-fact yet engaging, you'll note that the timeline Representative Crockett presented is missing several critical events. The atmosphere in the room shifted perceptibly. Several committee members leaned forward, examining the documents before them with renewed interest. A photographer at the back of the room captured the moment, his camera's shutter clicking softly. Crockett's expression changed subtly, a slight tightening around her eyes, a momentary press of her lips. She reached for her water glass again, taking a slow sip as she watched Leavitt continue. Furthermore, Leavitt proceeded, turning a page in her portfolio with deliberate precision. The financial analysis presented earlier fails to account for these 3 factors, which fundamentally alter the conclusions. As Leavitt methodically dismantled the earlier arguments, Crockett began to show signs of increasing discomfort. Her right foot tapped a rapid rhythm against the carpet beneath the table, invisible to the audience but betraying her growing agitation. She scribbled notes furiously, the scratch of her pen against paper audible during momentary pauses. When Leavitt referenced a particular statement Crockett had made in a previous session, the tension in the room crystallized. Crockett's eyes widened slightly, her hand freezing mid-note. A flush of color rose from her collar, spreading upward as Leavitt played a brief video clip that directly contradicted an earlier assertion. "As you can clearly see," Leavitt observed, her tone remaining professional and controlled, "this statement from 3 months ago presents a significantly different position than what we heard today." Crockett pressed the button requesting time to respond, the small light flashing amber on the chairman's desk. When recognized, she leaned toward her microphone, her voice carrying a new edge. "Point of clarification," she began, the words coming more rapidly now. "That statement is being taken entirely out of context. If Ms. Leavitt had bothered to include the full exchange—" "Representative Crockett," the chairman interjected, his tone even but firm, "please allow Ms. Leavitt to complete her testimony." The interruption seemed to intensify Crockett's frustration. Her hands gripped the edge of the table, knuckles whitening slightly against her brown skin. A muscle worked in her jaw as she nodded curtly. Leavitt continued her methodical presentation, referencing 3 more documents in sequence. With each exhibit, several committee members exchanged glances. A woman in the second row of the gallery whispered something to her companion, who nodded gravely in response. "And finally," Leavitt said, pulling a final document from her portfolio, "I'd like to present this internal memo dated March 15th, signed by Representative Crockett herself, which directly contradicts the position she has taken today." The committee aide displayed the memo on the large screen, its letterhead and signature clearly visible to everyone in the room. A hushed murmur swept through the gallery as people leaned forward, straining to read the text. Crockett's reaction was immediate and visceral. The color drained from her face before a deep flush replaced it. She half rose from her seat, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. "That document is—" she began, her voice sharp enough that the microphone distorted slightly. "That is a complete misrepresentation. You have deliberately taken—" "Representative Crockett," the chairman cut in firmly, "please control yourself." But Crockett was beyond listening now. She slammed her hand down on the table, sending her water glass toppling. The crystal tumbler shattered against the floor, water and ice scattering across the polished wood. "This is absolutely outrageous." Her voice echoed through the chamber, no longer requiring amplification. "You sit there with your manufactured evidence and your—" The chairman's gavel came down with such force that the sound reverberated through the stunned silence that followed Crockett's outburst. "This hearing is in recess for 15 minutes, he announced, his voice cutting through the tension. "Representative Crockett, I'll see you in my office." "Now." The cameras continued to roll as Crockett gathered her papers with shaking hands, several sheets floating to the floor in her haste. Leavitt remained seated, her posture unchanged, her expression revealing nothing as she watched her colleagues' departure. As the committee members filed out, whispers already spreading through their ranks, the damage was done. In less than 30 seconds, a career built on years of careful positioning had been undermined by a single, uncontrolled moment, captured forever by the unblinking eyes of the cameras that would carry this image to viewers across the nation. The hearing room emptied quickly, leaving only the lingering echo of the chairman's gavel and the glittering shards of broken glass beneath the dais, a fitting metaphor for what had just transpired.